I was teaching at Wonderful Garden, and suddenly, seemingly from out of nowhere, a bee appeared and stung me on the nose. Oh. And we were standing right at a big, beautiful patch of Leonardo Didima, also known as Herbal. And the woman of the garden said, "Hey, well, you just got stung by a bee, and this is Herbal." And she picked one of these red flowers, chewed it up, and stuck it into my nose, so that I looked like Bozo the Clown. But let me tell you, it really eliminated the pain in that face. Very, very good.
Come on, honey. Show me how you can run a little bit. Oh, you're good at that. Yay.
There's a stool here. Okay. Can they be that close together? It's better if they don't touch. If they don't touch. Better, you see how they're hung so that they're not actually touching? Yeah, right. This is ideal for drying. So what makes this space a good space for drying herbs? It's cool. Dark. Cool, dark. Exactly. There is no direct sunlight that ever comes into this space except right there, huh? That's south, and there's a little south light there, but we're up at the ceiling. All right, we have good air circulation. All right, doesn't have to be dark. Sometimes when people hear dark, they think, oh, there can't be any light at all. No, north light is fine. All right, there's some light in here. I mean, we can see. Well, yeah. Right, it's not in the pitch dark, but there's no sun is ever going to hit these herbs that we're hanging up.
What about a damp basement?
Horrible place to dry herbs. The worst.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So some place where the light does not ever really come into the herbs, where there is good air circulation. We, of course, also had the advantage, like last year when it was so wet, we wound up having to put on the wood stove to dry the herb. How can you tell when your herb is dried? When the hardest part of the herb breaks crisply. So for the herb that we just gathered, that would be the stalk, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'll let this hang up until the stalk breaks crisply. Then we'll take it down. How hard is it to take off a string that you've wrapped around and tied 4 times? Pretty hard, huh? Mm-hmm. How hard is it going to be to take these strings off? Very, very easy. You just undo the string, drop it in a drawer, and it's ready for your next herb. You like your rocking chair? Yeah. And we're going to store those herbs in paper bags. How come we're storing herbs in paper bags?
Can they still breathe?
In case they're not totally dry. Right? Which is the equivalent of they need to still breathe, right? I find that most people have the hardest time in terms of drying herbs in determining when the herb is really dry. And you take it down, it's not quite dry, you put it in a glass jar, you come back, you've got a science fair experiment going on in there. All right, and it really breaks your heart. Because you put out some effort to harvest that herb and to dry that herb, and now it's just trash. All right, you hesitate even to put it in your compost pile because you think, oh, mold spores, my gosh, what am I going to do with this stuff, right? So by putting it in a paper bag, you allow it to breathe, you allow it to continue to let go of moisture. Also, that jar allows light to come in. And from the moment that the herb is cut, light, and especially sunlight, is its enemy. By putting it in a brown paper bag, we're reassured that no light is ever going to hit that herb. Not only that, I will speak for myself. Every room in my house is an herb storage room. I have so many herbs in so many forms, and I would have to move out of my house if I stored my herbs in jars. How come? because the jar takes up the same amount of space, whether it's full of herb or has a tiny bit of herb in it, doesn't it? Whereas the bag takes up only the amount of space of the herb that's in it, yes? And we harvest different herbs at different times. All right. New apprentices, when you walked into this room, what did you see first?
Herb.
More herb than this?
Oh, yes.
You couldn't even hardly walk in this room, right?
No.
All right. Justine had harvested her comfrey patch. That was all hanging up in here. Elizabeth helped with that. That took us a while to hang all that comfrey, huh?
Thank you, yes.
Right. And that was from a comfrey patch, what, approximately 3 feet by 4 feet?
Yep.
Right, and this entire room was filled with comfrey, plus the nettle that Elizabeth and I had harvested. All right. Now, how do you get that much herb in here? As it dries, it's okay to group it together. All right. When you start the drying, they need to be separate from each other. But after they've dried 2 or 3 days, if you need drying space, then they can be hung close together. And after they've dried 4 or 5 days, they can actually be bunched together. So we could wind up with all of this bergamot just hanging from this section back here and bunched up, finishing its drying, while we have all the rest of this space for drying. These are just little pieces of wood that have been nailed on up to the ceiling. They're actually functional here. They actually do hold these ceiling panels up. But they can be added to any ceiling at all, especially if you have like a tile, you know, those kind of foamy tiles. It's very easy to add these. And as you see, really easy for hanging things. The push pins and the thumbtacks just stay here. So that, again, you see it's very easy and quick to be able to harvest your herb, come in and set it up to dry. Some people do dry on screens, huh? Let's go. Do we feel complete here about this?
Yeah. Just one question.
Please, yes.
All conditions right, how much time would you say it would take?
It's going to depend on the humidity. It's really going to depend on the humidity.
And the herb and when it was harvested.
How long did we let the nettle stay up there, Elizabeth?
It was a couple of weeks, few weeks.
Almost a month.
Okay.
Because that was almost the first thing you and I did together, right?
Right,
It was
right.
the very first week you were here.
And then we bunched it together.
And then we bunched it together a week later, harvested some more, and then we didn't take it down until about a month because we really needed the space for the comfrey.
Right.
All right? And I don't remember when you came over with the comfrey, but I think it was easily 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we just took that down and put it in bags. And of course we leave the bags open, right? We don't want to roll down the top of the bag. We want to leave the bag open so that any of the moisture. When you have an herb and you store it in a brown paper bag, you don't have to process the herb in any way. You just store the whole herb there. And these nourishing herbs will remain active and useful for at least 10 years when they're stored that way.
And
Once it's broken up, you start losing longevity. You buy your herb cut and sift, it's good for maybe 3 or 4 years. All right. You buy your herb in tea bags, it's good for maybe a year. You buy your herb powdered, it's good for 6 months. Every time we break it open, we're exposing it to oxidation and change.
Are you using everything? The leaves, the flower,
We're using the whole thing.
stem?
When we make comfrey infusion, we put 1 in per ounce of comfrey
Okay.
to be kind to our liver and kidneys because there's volatile oils in here, right? You could smell them, yeah? Smells great, huh? Lovely. Now the flowers can also be put in salads. We also make vinegar of this. It makes a wonderful vinegar. And since it is bee balm and it does counter the sting of bees, you could also make an oil of it if you wanted to. One of the fun things about herbal medicine is trying different things out. What could I try out that I haven't done with Monarda didyma? I could make bee balm blossom honey by putting these blossoms in a jar and pouring honey over it. That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I haven't done that, but that could be done. Right? So we're not going to be able to do everything with every herb today, but hopefully I'll generate ideas. That's why I gave you a to-do list, right? All right. No herbalist living could do all of that in any one summer. That's okay. All right? And you'll pull it out next summer, and you'll say, I did this and this last summer. This summer I'm doing this. What I have found is that if you can spend 2 days in the spring, 2 days in the summer, and 2 days in the late fall, really harvesting and preparing herbal remedies for 2 years running, that's 12 days, that's less than 2 weeks, you will be able to prepare all of the remedies you will need for yourself and your family for the rest of your lives.